What's going on, guys? Judgment here with
What's
a brand
going
new
on,
video.
guys? Judgment here. Yeah, I'm just gonna talk about why I quit ranked. And I have XCR here to bounce some ideas off of. Um,
Hello.
Basically, like how we both feel. I think it's easier to kind of compare with somebody else that is in a similar situation, and a similar mindset of like how the game is overall. Um, so yeah, just gonna be talking about why I quit Valorant. XCR is not quit Valorant, so I can establish that off rip. I'm just explaining
hmm
why I have. And it falls into one of four things really, which is just the game is boring, stale. The community is very limited in terms of like our creative freedom and what we're allowed to do, the heights that we're allowed to take the game. And the content scene, and how that is very stale, played out, and limiting. Yeah, just the game being stale overall. As in there's not much to do. Like the depth of Valorant is you play an unranked, you play a TDM, a deathmatch, whatever, and then you hop into ranked right after and you play your ranked. I think if you're a very casual player, it's not a big deal. For the most part, I guess, because your incentive to play is to get better. But I think a game should have more incentive than just that. There should be like, hey, you can grind for this weapon skin or this banner or this icon or something. Like there should be some sort of incentive to play the game, not purely just a ranked reward. And
I
even
think
if
uh,
oh god,
I think with any game that's competitive, they need different outlets for players to kind of enjoy themselves. Whereas a game like Valorant, if you're playing it casually, you have a lot of options. But if you're playing it like a lot and trying to rank up and playing consistently competitive and whatnot, you're gonna get bored of competitive play because that's all you pretty much do. You warm up, you play like a swift play, you play a death match, you play in the range, and then you go into your competitive matches, and that's very tiresome if that's all you really do in the game. Whereas the CS has like retake modes and other types of things you can do to enjoy yourself, Valorant doesn't really have those. And the ones they do have are very limited in comparison. So it's a bit harder to play the game for fun if you wanted to, if you were playing competitive a lot, is my thoughts on that
yeah, no, I
personally.
I totally agree. Yeah, like just every game should 100% have like access for any type of player to get in, whether you're a competitive player, whether you're a casual player, and you should be able to express like, you know, that style that you enjoy.
Just different
Um,
ways to enjoy yourself.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like
definitely.
there, every game, there's people that have like, there's people that specifically will grind achievements. There's people that will grind the ranked ladder. There's people that will come up with new like gimmicky things that people have never thought of. But in a game like Valorant, where everything is just purely controlled by the company, you're limited to literally just you have unrated and anything that entails that, TDM, deathmatch, spike rush, whatever, which is just micro versions of unrated. And then
Yeah.
you have ranked, and that's it. You pick a path, and 90% of the time, most of the player base is funneled into going into ranked because that's the only like that's where the incentive
That's the only
lies.
incentive, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you don't want to play competitively at all, then you can still have fun with the game, I think. I don't think Valorant's a bad game. I just think it lacks what other games in its sphere do a lot better, such as, like, once again, the comparison with Counter-Strike, with all the different things you can do in Counter-Strike. I could load up Counter-Strike and I could play for 5 hours and not get bored just playing, like, retakes or b-hopping or doing aim bots and whatnot.
Exactly.
There's so much more substance in that game.
Yep.
Uh, but like I said, like Valorant is still an okay game. I just think it lacks in those areas a lot, and that can burn people out really easily and make them not even want to touch the game at all.
Exactly. Especially if you've been playing since like beta, like me. I think you've
Yeah,
been playing since beta as well.
yeah, I have.
So thousands of hours. I think I have like 3,000 hours plus right now.
Mhm.
And 1,000 of those being on my freaking one trick, which is that gets pretty
Yeah,
boring too.
yeah. Like I've also got 1,000 hours on the same character, and that also brings in what we were talking about before we started recording is the lack of depth in the characters that we play. Like Phoenix doesn't really have that much depth, and neither does KO. Like you can learn lineups, you can learn flash lineups, and you can throw your flash differently, right? Like there's just not much depth. You're kind of locked into the role that you select at the start of the game, which I
Mhm.
think is a big issue.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like I always compare like And it is a FPS game at its core. So like obviously you don't want to make a character too complex to where you get to a point of like, okay, like
Where
this
it's just
is
it's all confusing and it
yeah,
doesn't really
exactly.
make sense together.
But I think a character like this is just my opinion, but I think Astro was a great character. I think
Yeah.
the depth that character has is like very cool. It's very gimmicky. Like yeah, it's like point and click. Like here's this and this, but there's a lot of like play potential. Like
And I think
I just
shifted meta in a good direction.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. I just yeah, I agree. I just more characters like that. Like you want the game, I guess, because the game is meant to like appeal to newer players or like to be their first FPS. It's a good introductory phase, but I think they should also balance it out with characters that are more complex. I think
Yeah.
not everything should be so easy. So like, you know, like I think people want some sort of challenge every now and then. Maybe that's just me. Like I've always liked playing characters that are difficult, you know, in fighting games and League of Legends and whatever the game might be. Like if there's a challenge, it tempts me to like dig into it and like understand it. But if there's no like difficulty, I feel like the game gets very boring because you don't have as much skill expression. And I guess the skill expression in Valorant would be like, oh, here's the aim. But like what separates like Valorant from Counter-Strike is the agents, you know what I mean? So like why not take that a step further and make it like more gimmicky? Like I think a lot of people like Yoru because Yoru is very gimmicky, has a lot of play potential, you know what I mean? But
And Neon too as well. There's a lot of skill expression with the character in terms of movement.
yeah,
And
exactly.
a lot of characters don't have like any skill expression at
Yeah.
all. Like if you look at a character like Brimstone's kind of the go-to for just the player that doesn't really have a refined play style because they can just kind of pick up Brim and they know how to use their smokes. And if you have lineups, you have lineups. And that's pretty much how you play Brimstone. There's not much skill expression at all in the characters, in my opinion, with an exception of a few, of course.
Yeah.
And I think that's also an issue.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And then I think talking about community ranked, I mean the ranked environment is it doesn't matter what rank you're in. You know, a lot of people would make the argument like, oh, you know, gold or plat is the most toxic, or you know, where I could make the argument that radiant is very toxic. You know, I think overall Valorant has a very like toxicity problem, and I'm not one to be like a lot of people would be like, oh, you're just soft, or oh, you just, you know, you just can't handle it, or you know, whatever. But like it doesn't bother me like if like getting flamed directly, if you want my honest opinion, like I don't care. Like 90% of the time, if you're just bothering me, I just mute you because I want to win the game more than you. But I think in general, like there's a lot of rampant toxicity in the game, and I think that could be alleviated with going back to like that more like having fun with the game. I think like, and now this could, I don't know if there's anything to like back this or anything, but I feel like when people are locked into like a pure ranked environment, and like I said, you're playing unrated and TDM for ranked, like the game becomes very like competitive without like, even if you aren't playing the competitive playlist, you know what I mean? Like if you have something like, you know, I always go back to CS because it's a good example, but like there are people that will do custom maps. There's bee hopping, there's surfing, there's death run. There's so much like different ways to like alleviate yourself and like just have a good time on the game, that there's not really like sweaty ass people playing fucking death run. You know what I mean? There's not sweaty ass people that are gonna like ruin your day because they want to like shit on you, you know? And I think that's where a lot of toxicity stems from because of that. You know what I mean? I think you can't really like have like a good time because there's always somebody that's like I know a lot of people get off work and then they come to play Valorant and then they're just getting shit on because they don't play the game all the time, and then they're like, oh, that feels bad. And it's like, well, imagine if we had more options to like, you know, have a good time. But because we're locked, like it kind of falls back on that thing. It makes the game, you know, very, very not fun. Toxicity becomes a problem. And every game has toxicity. It's an inevitable thing, I think, in this day and age. But
I don't think I've played a game, because I've played CS for 10 years. I played Overwatch and was top 500 for 4 years, 3 years, and I played like Rainbow Six and whatnot. And out of every community, I think Valorant has got to be like hands down the worst community I've played in. Especially like at Immortal 3 Radiant level, You lose like 1 or 2 rounds and it's over for
Yep.
like one player on your team. He'll just start throwing, and like I would almost never see that nearly as much in the other games I've played at high levels.
Yep.
So I don't. Maybe it's what you were saying with the lack of just being able to unwind in the game that makes it that issue. But
Yeah.
of all the games I've played, it definitely is the worst in that aspect, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. And I would 100% agree with like Valorant is definitely the worst. Like I played League for several years. I played Overwatch. I was Masters in Overwatch. Played Halo, the highest rank in Halo. Counter-Strike, played that for like 2 years. Like 100% community-wise, like Valorant, like there's just something
Smurfs, bro. There's something.
There's
in
just
the game,
something,
man. I don't
yeah.
get it.
And I don't know what it is, but
And I know like a lot of people that are gonna watch this video are gonna like feel the same way, that Valorant has a pretty fucked community
yeah.
in terms of just toxicity overall. I don't know if it's something that I'm sure it can be fixed, but it's hard to say why,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then content creator perspective, I mean, not much really to say here. Like if you guys watch Valve videos, like you watch educational, I mean, really Valorant falls into one of a couple categories, and that's it. You have Smurf content, which is very frowned upon. But I'm gonna explain like why people do that, I feel. Then you have educational content, and then you have montage content, stuff that I've done, stuff that XTR has done. And then you have like that like cringe, like e-dater, e-boy, e-girl, whatever the hell is going on, like haha funny, like flirting, W-Riz, whatever the fuck is going on over there. Like that, I don't fuck with that. But
that other aspect of the community nobody likes to look at.
Yeah. And even then, like that side of the community, like it isn't even Valorant like content. It's just people being cringe on Valorant. Like it's not even like a Valorant problem. It's yeah.
It's just a people thing.
It's just a people thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
But in terms of everything else, talking about Smurf content, I feel like Smurf content is such a prevalent thing, and a lot of people hate it. But I think the reason there's so much Smurf content is because of the lack of creative freedom in the game.
Yeah.
You give, like, even I've done it. Like I made a Smurf content video where I was gonna do a KO to Radiant, whatever. And a lot of people were like, "Don't do that because of it's very bad for the community. You become part of a problem." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can get that." But the only reason I had done it in the first place was because there is nothing else to do, freedom, like creative freedom wise. Like I can make a skin video, like there's nothing I can do. There's nothing, and not just me. There's nothing a lot of content creators can do. Like go look at any content creator's YouTube channel. It's the same thing spit out over and over because we are so insanely capped where we just can't produce something that's new, something that's fresh, because we don't get the opportunity.
I think the only one even like close to pushing an envelope, like changing the way that content was consumed for Valorant, was Amin. Amin on PC, and even then, like, he's still pretty trapped by it. I know he's trying to shift away from Valorant just because like there's just not much you can really do in the game to push the envelope for content. And he is like the pioneer for making new kinds of content, in my opinion. And even he is having a lot of issues with it. So
and I think Archmetrion, I think that was his name, he did like those like map rework things where he like went in like a separate like Blender program. He like that was cool.
That was really cool.
But even then it was like external
with the engine, and it was completely external because there's just no tools with the engine that you can actually use, I feel. Whereas stuff like Archmedin, who makes like amazing content, things like that are just much more common in other games because they have those tools and have access to those tools.
Creating custom maps, creating custom game modes, like a plethora of content opportunities arise, which would make the community a lot more engaged, I feel. But you cap it off, and it's not, like you just don't have anything to work with.
I think it's bad because from my personal experience, I think it's bad when I can go on my own channel and not be able to tell the difference between my videos
Oh
at
yeah.
all.
Oh yeah.
And it's like that's not what I wanted from my channel ever. But
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to come up with new ideas at this time. Like
Yeah.
when I was first starting out, I had so many fresh ideas, and my content was like super fresh, super just different from what's going on today because it worked well back then because everything was new. But the longer I made because I've made Valorant content like since beta. Like I've been around making content since beta, and like over time, it's just what worked was just the same thing over and over and over again. And I don't know, dude. Like,
Yeah.
there's just no way to make fresh content
Yeah.
easily, at least.
Mm-hmm. And even like, I don't know. I just feel like the community overall just isn't like, I don't want to say like cared about, but like it feels like the community isn't cared about like at all in this game. Like from things like from things as simple as a replay tool, like that are not implemented into a game in this day and age. That from
And
like
Valorant's been out for like what, 2 years?
I don't
Almost
even
3 years even.
feels like
It's
two or
got to
three
be at least like
years.
2 or 3 years. Yeah. I
Um,
don't know the amount of changes they've made like in these 2 and 3 years. Like, yeah, they've done a lot. Like, I can give them credit where it's due because if you look at beta Valorant and you look at Valorant
it's a
today,
very different game.
it is completely different.
Yeah.
And like they've done a lot of good changes to it, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that they definitely should have done that they just didn't. I've been complaining about map creator tools
Mm-hmm.
since literally since like episode 1. I made a video complaining about it in episode 1. And obviously, like, I don't think it's ever going to change just due to the fact that it's Riot. I don't think Riot would ever give access to the community for something like map creation tools, in my opinion.
Nah,
I could be wrong.
I agree. No, I mean, I came from League, and League of Legends is like purely like Riot. Like it's just like their little bubble. Like there's no, like we have things like practice tool and like other like little things we can gimmick with, but it's at the end of the day like it's all Riot, no community, involvement. And I think it's because of like cheater issues, which I think Valorant is great at cheater issues. I think.
Oh yeah,
they're
I think out of every
fantastic.
game I played, Valorant is the best, like hands down.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that complain about like, cheaters or whatever, a lot of the time it's just like a smurf or just somebody having a good game. But in terms of like actual cheater problems, Valorant does a fantastic job. Never have a problem with that.
Yeah, in my years of playing the game, I've ran into 3 blatant cheaters, all of which were banned.
Yep.
And like one person that was very clearly soft cheating.
Yeah.
And aside from that, that's like pretty much all I've seen.
Yeah, I've experienced one, and it was terminated like instantly, so it was fine.
Yeah, like 2 of mine were terminated, and then the other 2 I'm sure were banned at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically I think each key point of I think what the game or what we think the game could work on. Why I am leaving the scene because it's just not very there's not much to work with. You get bored, you move on to different things, and yeah, I felt the need to make this video because I don't want to just fall off the face of the earth and be like, that was my last video and that's it. Like I wanted to explain why, and Valorant has brought me a lot of good memories, a lot of good relationships. Even somebody like XTR has been a great friend to me. And having a platform based around Valorant has been a blessing. But I just gotta move on to better things, I feel. And obviously like I cared about the game because I invested so much time in it. So I wanted to give these points on what I think they could improve on, and hopefully they'll do it. Maybe they won't, but at least I gave like my 2 cents. And yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this, and hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Bye guys.